Hey everyone. Running a horror campaign or a horror game in an RPG can be just a ton of fun with the uneasiness, with the being scared a little bit. It's a lot of fun. And I wanted to talk to you today about some ideas around that and how Savage Worlds impacts it. Hey everyone, this is Carl with Tabletop Tango. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff. We'd love your support. We'd love your comments. We'd love subscribe, like, ring the bell, all that good stuff. We really like and appreciate any support that you give us for the channel. It'd be great. Um, Also, we've got a podcast called Mastering the RPG, which is on general topics, and you might like that one as well. So check that out. So, what I want to talk about today? Today, I want to talk about horror, a horror RPG, and tie it a little bit to Savage Worlds and how Savage Worlds helps it and hinders it a little bit as well. So that's what I want to talk about. None of these ideas are brand new to me. I didn't invent them. There's a lot of information online and videos that talk about different ways of running a horror game. I'm going to focus more on those kind of monster of the week or gothic or the kinds that are really, you're playing the everyman in a situation that's somewhat beyond your control versus maybe something like a cosmic, with Cthulhu or whatever. But it still would apply, I think, in most of these cases anyway. But that's kind of where I'm focusing. So let's talk about it. So first thing we need to do is set expectations with the players. This is going to be uncomfortable. You may be describing gore. You may be describing scenes in a way that creates a visceral reaction. So you need to make sure your players are on board, and you definitely need to talk about lines and veils. So what are lines again? Lines are things you just do not want to cross. So make sure that topics that your players just will not put up with are well known up front so that you don't tailor your adventure around something that they just don't want to see. And then veils are things happen off screen, goes dark, something happens off screen. Understand what are those things that the players want to play and enjoy, but they don't want to see the end result. They just want to know that it happened. So really make sure that your players are on board because you're going to want to describe gore. You're going to want to take a little agency a little bit and describe like maybe how their gut feels and things like that. So make sure they're on board. For Savage Worlds, look at the setting rules. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this coming up. But setting rules can help really define the flavor of the game. And you may want to do things like gritty damage. You may want to do things like difficult healing out of the core book just to make it so that the players feel more helpless. But I'll talk more about some other things that you can pull out because right now Pinnacle has out the Horror Companion, and the Horror Companion is something that if it makes sense you might want to use. What does it include? Includes character choices that are more like monsters, so they don't fit into what I'm trying to talk about here. But they also have a number of setting rules which are geared towards making that sense of horror, like one's Bucket of Bloods, where if something happens and somebody dies, there's a big splatter of blood that affects other players. That feels kind of pulpy, but it can help set the mood for your horror game as you're running it. So what's some things we can very specifically do in our horror game to kind of build it out and make it a horror game? Well, the first thing is we want to describe things in an unusual or uncomfortable way. We don't want to go with the standard everyday, you walk into a room and you see a thing. You want to have something that's more visceral. And so, even like normal things, like you might see a cat. And the cat, instead of just being, oh, you see a cat, it's like, it's a cat. It's jet black. It looks like it's got patches of fur missing as if something or itself tore them out as it walks near your path and it looks at you with a look of, if such a thing can exist on a cat, of disgust. So same thing with, let's say they're entering a barn, looking for clues to find the big evil omen or the evil spirit that's out there. So you could say you entered a barn and you see a pool of blood near one of the fence posts where a horse was once tied up. Okay, yeah, that'll work. Or you can go something more like this. You enter a barn. The weathered boards creak with each step. Hooks swing slowly on chains hanging from the ceiling. Near the far wall is a pool of blood near a fence. And from the fence posts drip drip of blood from the fence. It must be fresh. So just a difference like that sets the mood, makes the characters much more uncomfortable than if you just did a basic fantasy description. One of the big things that I was talking about is the fear and the uneasiness that a player would have. Now, if players are big darn heroes, larger than life, full of tons of this, tons of that, they got edges up the wazoo, it may not feel as foreboding as you would like it to. And so one of the things we really talk about in horror is decrease the power level, make the players a little more helpless. And in the Savage Worlds Horror Companion, they have a setting rule called Slaughter Rules, which is really geared towards that. It defines that each wild card only gets one wound. There's no soak, so you can't use bennies to soak soak for your hero. Players' bennies, they're awarded to the player because we're going to try to make it perhaps even more deadly. And so you want to make sure that as characters come in, those Benny pool doesn't regenerate for each new character that comes in. So those are some of the things that come in the slaughter rules that help make the player feel more helpless. You could do other things, like you could eliminate the ability to pick edges. And so now you're just an everyman. You have your basic attributes, basic skills, but you don't have one of those combat edges that really make a difference. You're just out there trying to survive in a evil infested world. So now we're running the game. So we've set the power level, we've set expectations, we're describing things in a way that create that uneasiness. One of the things you can do to really create a sense of foreboding is by isolating the party. A lot of good horror is all about players have no escape or no avenue for help. How many horror movies are in haunted houses that they can't get out the doors and the windows, and so things have to happen? How many times is somebody in the deep underbelly of a building walking around the tunnels and they get lost, so they are no longer able to get escape? Cell phones don't work, cars don't start, right? It's a classic trope. So if you can isolate the party, now you can take advantage of things like minimal ammo. You can have them now looking for improvised weapons, which have a penalty, right? Running out of ammo, bad idea. All these things can be, brought to bear, and other things, right? Now the bad guys or the evil spirit, they have more control of the environment, and they can sneak around, they can appear where they want to, and the players have no control over that. So that's cool. Another thing that's on the same theme is you can split party members. So it's much more scary to be an individual who maybe has a specific skill set, and you're used to having the party to back you up, so that your skill set, you're not a fighter, you're a researcher, and now you're somehow been put in a situation where a fight might happen. Now you're scared. Now you're worried about what's going to happen. Now, how do you split the party? It's very tough, right? That's classic. You don't. Well, in a horror genre, lots of them are people are doing research, people are trying to figure out what's going on, and there's other things like that. But you really can drive a time element. If you make things so things have to be done in a timely manner or bad stuff's going to happen, you force the players to make those tough decisions to say, yes, we need somebody to go to the library and research so that we can get information, but we don't have time for everybody to go, because somebody needs to go and quickly go into the cavern, the catacombs, to find out what's going on with the priests, whatever, right? And so that drives that split, and that split now gives you a chance to make situations that a player character is going to be uncomfortable in because it's not their forte, it's not their skill set. So very cool. As part of that, as you do your narration, you can kind of mess with players, right? So you can kind of build up to something that's going to happen, and then you can jump away. So you're walking through, what do you do? Well, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to gradually, I see the door to the boiler room. I'm going to reach and I'm going to open it. Okay, John, you're up, it really just, the players now are like, okay, what's going to happen? And they're getting kind of, again, that uneasiness, that like that anticipation. So it's kind of a GM thing that you can do to just kind of mess with people. Um, kind of Players are used to stuff, right? They're used to things working a certain way. So if you come into your horror game and you start twisting the theme, you're you're twisting tropes on them, like using unusual trappings for powers, and so they're going against the, you know, the mystic power that they don't quite understand. Well, its power, blast power, may come from the fact that it sends waves of zombies or something at the players, and when a zombie gets to the player, it explodes, and that is its trapping for its power. Or something just weird and just weird. I don't know, but you can do that for any other theme. So flip it around. Like, for example, when I talked about the cat, people are used to seeing cats, but now this cat was weird. It's not right. There's something strange about it. Or maybe it's not even a cat. Maybe it's some other kind of animal that they're not used to, and that's the thing that's foreboding of evil. I don't know. So then the last thing is really leveraging kind of their being uncomfortable with things unknown. Players are used to knocking down the door. There's the bad guys. There's the minions. Take them out. Shoot them down. They're used to being able to figure things out and go into a situation somewhat prepared. Now, not all parties do that. Some parties just rush in when they shouldn't, but most people are used to having some understanding of the situation. In a horror, you may not have that, right? You're going to want to keep things secret for longer. So, and you see this in the classic trope, right? They get a glimpse of the creature, the monster of the week. They may see, you know, what it has occurred. Like, for example, the barn. You know, this thing took that horse out that used to be there, and all that's left is a pool of blood. It's like, what is this that can do that? And you keep just in a glimpse of the periphery. This is where, you know, from a notice roll, when you're rolling notice in the Savage World setting, notice should not give them a view. Oh, you rolled your successful notice, so now you get to see that, you know, it's a 10-foot tall lizard creature. No, it's more that gives you the ability to just see that something's just gone down the sewer crate and you hear it clacking. That's just a little bit there of some of the things you can do that create the unknown. So also in the fantasy or the horror companion, there's a concept of a setting rule where everything is a wild card. So you want to take advantage of that as for your creatures too. Your creatures should always be wild cards. And if you want to make it tougher, their minions could be wild cards too, so that every creature they go against is tougher and harder than they can imagine. And they go, oh, I killed another one, and I'm beaten down, and I don't have the help I need, and I've not seen the real thing. All I've seen is a glimpse of a tentacle closing a grate. I don't know what I'm up against, and that's tough. To kind of help limit that ability for them to just say, oh, I can figure out the creature, you might want to limit divination spells. Again, don't let things like notice get in your way of hiding the creature. Allow creatures to kind of act at a distance and be protected as much as possible. So if you do have something unknown, it's just around the corner, yet it's still able to facilitate attack or do something that causes the characters uneasiness or problems or something that's just kind of scary. So those are kind of the big ones. Isolate the party, try to split the party, change the theme up. You know, that also goes with descriptions, make the descriptions uncomfortable and different, and then keep things unknown. Don't put them out there right away. And then Savage Worlds helped us. You can grab the Horror Companion. It's got a lot of good information. I think how you limit the character's capability in your one-shot or in your campaign will really pay dividends in that feeling. Careful that some of the rules out there are all about finding things out, learning about what's going on, and you want to limit those while still making them work. Like the notice roll, you do notice something, but it's just not, hey, there's the creature hiding behind a partition. So lots of good stuff. Again, didn't invent any of these. I thought I'd say, here's some of the things Savage Worlds might impact it, or some of the things you might want to take. Definitely, if you're planning on doing a horror, the Horror Companion from Pinnacle is a good resource. It's not great for every scenario, and there's different setting rules you can pick and choose to make sort of what you're trying to do. But it's a great resource to go along with the core book for your horror setting or your horror game. Once again, I'm Carl with Tabletop Tango. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff. Please support us as best you can, and we'll catch you next time. Oh, and don't forget Mastering the RPG, our new podcast. Well, maybe not new. It's been around 2 seasons. Catch you later.